This time on Kawaii-Fi Radio, we have an idea for Doctor Who. I'm used to seeing Christopher Eccleston swearing up a storm and beating up people in alleys.
Nice. If Doctor Who did that, I'd get back on board.
Right? Kyle is distracted. He's also in the Netflix show You.
Yeah, I just said that.
And Are You Afraid of the Dark? Sorry, my bad. And we talk about The Boy and the Heron a lot.
They say it's too confusing to understand.
This really isn't right for the news section. I just realised that's why it's still here. We're going back to it again.
There's too much to talk about.
Avon launch!
Tetsuo! Kaneda!
Onita?
It's over 9,000! Nani?
Configure the language logic interface for Japanese.
Kawaii-Fi.
Kawaii-Fi.
Kawaii-Fi Radio!
Konnichiwa and welcome. You're tuned in to Kawaii-Fi Radio, the podcast we dive in the world of anime, manga, and Japanese otaku culture. I'm Kyle, and with me is Emma and Tifa, and two of us are going a little bit deaf after the opening. It's not Tifa.
I can hear it from here.
She's not wearing her headphones.
Yeah, I think I'm not wearing my headphones anymore now either. So this episode, it's finally here. It's been a decade of production. Miyazaki's latest film is finally in cinemas and around the world, and it's incredible. Oh my god. The Boy and the Heron, also known as How Do You Live, it was set to be Hayao Miyazaki's final film, but he's already back in the studio and bristling with new ideas for another, which is fantastic. So that's what we're getting stuck into because we've all been to see it. We've all been very excited about it for this entire year. And hurrah, it's finally happened. Now, if you are new to the podcast, welcome. We also have a YouTube channel where we share anime-related videos and interviews. And there's also a Patreon where we share additional content, including the whole other podcast called The Pre-Show. That's not safe for children or work, but it's fun. So $1 a day. $1 a day, $1 a month. $1 a day is a lot. $1 a day is a lot.
It's quality garbage. It's not worth $1 a day.
It's worth $1 a month, maybe. Now, if that sounds like something you'd be interested, like garbage about anime, you can find details in the episode description. But before we do any of that, it's almost the end of the anime season.
Oh my god.
It's almost Christmas and New Year's and festive everything. And we're kind of running out of shows to talk about. So here's what we've been watching.
I have no idea how old I am or where I came from.
Nani? Ohio?
Hang time! I gotta go!
I have to know. Hooray! I did the thing.
Oni-chan, nani wo miru? What we're watching. And right now we're watching the cats fighting one another in the doorway. Kumo's being very chirpy as always, our little black cat, spooky boy. But moving along from that and staying in the spooky theme, girls, what have you been watching? You both. I was going to say Emma, but I'm like Tifa's also a spooky girl.
We're both the spooky aficionados on the podcast, aren't we?
Nothing too spooky recently, though.
Nothing really spooky at all lately, which is very disappointing. I miss Halloween.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll give some direction then. Tifa, you've been watching Scott Pilgrim anime.
Yes, so it's Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is what the anime is called, and yeah.
For all intensive purposes, it sounds like this isn't canon.
It is canon.
It is canon.
It is technically considered canon.
Where? Like how?
The original authors of the comics
so they
involved in production. So
okay.
Okay.
Like we talked about it briefly on the pre-show, but explain to us how this kind of fits into the whole Scott Pilgrim thing.
So Scott Pilgrim is obviously a comic that many people love, and then was turned into the beloved film Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. And then everyone was super excited for this anime, which is kind of advertised as a remake of the comics specifically, so it was going to delve a little bit more into that.
Does it have the same people?
It does. All the same actors from the films. So you have Chris Evans, you have Michael Cera, you have Brie Larson, Anna Kendrick, Aubrey Plaza, everyone basically. And yeah, so this story isn't what it was advertised to be. So technically you could look at this as a possible sequel, even though it starts at the same point. So you start off with like, Scott Pilgrim has these dreams about Ramona Flowers, and then they meet at a party and all that kind of stuff. And then he finds out that she has like seven evil exes, and then has to fight those evil exes. So when we go to the first fight with Matthew Patel, something different happens. And, well, I guess it's, like, basically the first episode, so it's a little bit of a spoiler, but it's not, I don't know. But just spoiler warning, just in case. But Scott doesn't win.
Huh.
And that changes where the story goes.
So it's a divergent storyline almost.
Yes, but then we also see past what we get in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World as a somewhat of a sequel in a sense. So it is a very different storyline. It does get kind of meta, and this could have been very, very good because you see a lot more from Ramona Flowers' perspective, and her storyline is really good, but it's not very fleshed out. So, which is kind of unfortunate because instead of Scott going on this journey with her exes, it's her that has to kind of go a bit more on this journey. And perhaps they should have maybe called it like Ramona Flowers or something in the title instead of Scott Pilgrim, because she's a little bit more of the main character, but his story comes back into it.
Or
though,
even, Scott Pilgrim, Ramona's journey or something
like that.
I mean, I can kind of see from a production standpoint that you don't, like, especially in this day and age, you don't want to be making a film or a series where it's all about the guy saving the girl, because that's kind of very unbalanced in today's media. But it also seems like a weird...
It mainly based on how they advertised it.
Yeah.
It's not the same story as how they've advertised it. But not only that, it's like, this is a good idea. It's a good plot point. There are a lot of good plot points, especially if we're looking at the part of the story which is somewhat of a sequel to the original story. So when they go kind of further beyond that, like kind of what happens after, I guess, that is quite interesting, but they never fleshed out these different plot points very well. Instead, we get 5 to 10 minutes of like different characters sitting there watching anime, which is funny, but it's a limited series with only so much time.
How many episodes is it?
I think it's only like 8 episodes or 7 episodes, something like that.
I wonder if they were worried about losing a lot of the audience by following Ramona or having like a divergent kind of storyline.
Yeah, it's kind of like
by advertising,
So like, for example, they do get kind of like meta with it, and with Chris Evans's character, how he does like acting and stuff that, and he's acting in a film which is called Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Okay.
Yeah, and like some of those aspects are kind of funny and would keep the audience there as you kind of have this conversation about what has come before, if that makes sense. And there are different aspects that like they could just do that. They don't need to have like the other, I don't know, very sitcom type like comedy aspects where you're just like seeing characters talk to each other, even though that aspect of like the filming and stuff was kind of funny. It was also just way too long. It's like the pacing of different parts were not that great. It's like, I want to see more of what happens after, because that part was like really cool. They could have maybe done a bit more of that, or even though it's about Ramona, I feel like we don't actually get to do a lot with Ramona, so it just doesn't feel
part of the charm of the original film was how snappy it was.
Yes, yeah.
Just the infamous line, bread makes you fat, and then cut.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
it's just here, there, kind of just throws out these quips.
Yeah.
But that sounds like it's not.
Yeah, it just doesn't hit the same like pacing as the original film, and then you feel like obviously different things happen, so the characters change, and so their personalities are not going to be quite the same. But I feel like, especially with Wallace specifically, I mean, he was kind of in love with Scott.
Yeah.
Like, that was kind of the dynamic, is he's his best friend. He kind of has a bit of a crush on him, but they don't really play that out as much. Like, you think that he would have felt a specific way about certain things, and he doesn't. And you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, it's on Netflix for those who want to check it out. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's bad, but it's just not what was advertised more than anything else.
Yeah, it's just not what I wanted from the series. It's not necessarily bad, but there are aspects that definitely could have been better. And I think it's a very divisive series amongst Scott Pilgrim fans.
Fair. All right. Well, moving on from that, let's talk about some power-ups. So we're going to talk about I Will Survive Using Potions, which both me and Emma have been watching. This is a series where... actually, I think we talked about this last week.
I think we did.
I think we did too,
I think we did.
Well, we're going to talk about it again anyway, because it's still fantastic. So this is a show where it's an isekai, but she kind of blackmails the goddess who takes her over.
No, so she accidentally gets killed by a god.
Yeah.
And as I am so sorry for killing you by accident, like he sends her to a different world because she's dead on Earth, but she can be alive somewhere else. But the goddess that rules that world has a major crush on the god from Earth.
As I said, blackmails her into...
She's like really grateful that she even got to talk to Earth God Sun. And so she gives this girl who died on Earth like a whole bunch of wishes.
Well, more correctly, she says to her, look, I'll give you an opportunity. You can choose one power for yourself. But she keeps adding like little...
Yeah, you say one power, but she's like
she
lots
keeps
of
adding things on it, and whenever
things.
the goddess is kind of a bit like, oh, I'm not sure, and she's like, I'm sure the Earth God would be really happy if you looked after me. You know, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of a bit of blackmailing. It's kind of a little bit of like, I'm going to get what I want out of this.
Oh yeah, she's very persuasive, very good at
manipulation,
dealing, wheeling and dealing.
Yeah.
Shall we say.
Also, she like by default had like evil eyes. Like her eyes kind of like give like this. She's glaring all the time.
Part of her story character is that she was born with just like resting, angry, mean face.
Fair.
And she finds it really hard because people always are kind of just a bit scared of her. But the further we get along, like the less that seems like a thing.
Well, I think now she's less stressed compared to where she was working in her old life.
I'm pretty sure she'd be stressed now. She looks 12.
Yeah.
She's but yeah, it's become less of an issue. Like at the beginning, it was a big thing, and now it's not. So
But
much.
it did still show up in the most recent episode we watched, where they saw her and she looked like she was glaring at them. It was like the kids, I think. Maybe it wasn't the kids. Maybe it was like one of the
No, like
nobles.
she bullied the landlord.
It was amazing.
But like she had leverage other than just having a scary face.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it would have made more
Well,
sense.
I mean,
or, like,
basically,
been-
she's being touted as the angel of the goddess. And
we haven't even mentioned what power.
Yeah, she can make any potion in any container she wants. She wants
Interesting.
she wants a truck. She makes the truck the container for the potion. She
Yeah,
wants
it
a
just
sword. She makes the sword a container for the potion.
More and more ridiculous.
Oh, and she can speak to any animal, so she can talk to the birds and her horse.
Well, she said to the goddess, I want to be able
Cinderella.
to speak any language. And the goddess, being an idiot, gave her like the ability to speak to animals and as well,
Yeah.
like literally any language.
Also, like whenever she wants to prove she's friends with the goddess, she just insults her, and the goddess will drop buckets on her head. And at one point, she uses that as a way to put out a fire because then they've got buckets.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good, and it just kind of keeps escalating. She starts off in one country where the prince is obsessed with her, and he's very much like a bad, like a negative male protagonist, not to like Gaston sort of level.
Yeah,
he's
he's not bad. He's not a bad person. He's just extraordinarily naive. He's like a funny little rich boy who fell head over heels with this girl who she like provides them modern financial, economical, social advice. That is how a society runs, like the best farming practices, the best, all these things.
But the problem
and they
is
think
is-
she's a genius because obviously it's set.
Yeah, the problem
In
is
the
though,
early days.
I find is that the phrasing he's using is "I will make her mine," as in ownership, and he keeps saying she will be mine, not I want to be with her.
Yeah.
And that to me,
Yeah,
is
because
like,
he's a little rich boy who's
big red
used to
flag.
getting what he wants,
Spoiled.
but he's not evil.
No, he's not evil.
Yeah.
He's not evil. He's just dumb
Yeah.
and entitled,
Yeah, he's entitled. but
which is
also,
evil. No,
delusional.
delusional. Yeah,
Delusional.
Yeah. But
It's like
Yeah.
really low stakes. It's just
I mean, like
chill.
someone dies and they just reverse it. Like, like I got a good potion. It's fine. We're good.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, it's pretty good. If you like the Saint's magic power is omnipotent, this is like that, but a bit more chibi and a bit lower on the romance side. I
Yeah,
would
there's
say.
not anywhere near as much romance.
No.
It's
Though
sillier.
she does keep going on about I need to find a husband.
Yeah.
And it's like you ask the goddess to make you the minimum age required to be considered an adult in that world, but the problem is you already look young, so now no one believes you're an adult.
Well, it just happens to be like, because it's the ye olde times, the minimum age to be an adult is like 13.
Yeah, this is
true.
true. It's highly entertaining. Also, like she gives a potion to a girl who, and I think we mentioned this last
We
time.
did.
She gives a potion to one of the girls who like saves her
Spent
life.
her entire life training to be a knight.
Yeah.
And now she's probably the ripe old age of like 32. And so she's a spinster, basically.
She can't tell though because it's chibi art style.
Yeah.
And they give her a potion which apparently de-aged her. But you can't tell because it's chibi art style.
And also, they don't explicitly say that.
Yeah.
We just kind of had to figure it out because she ends up getting married.
Engaged.
Engaged.
Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of funny. It's really tongue in cheek. And you just kind of like you think it's heading in one direction and then it just veers off to the left and it's another thing and then over this way.
It's very satisfying because it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it'd be funny if she did this. Oh my God, she did it. That's awesome.
Pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
I wonder if a human is considered a container. Can I just put poison in his stomach? Oh, I can.
Yes. Yes, she can.
It's
Like where, like literally anywhere, any container, any fluid. So
Any
she makes
shape.
like soy sauce bottles and stuff as well.
Cute.
Like,
like, yeah,
Great.
it's
Well, then
really
she could
fun.
make herself a husband then.
Yes, she theoretically could. She theoretically could. What I'm wondering is what if she's bothered by the fact that she looks too young, she could always make a potion to make her. Because she can make a potion which has any effect. She can make a potion which will make her older and look however she wants. So I'm surprised she hasn't approached that because she is an adult when she dies. She's working in like a job and all that. One thing that's really odd about it is the opening sequence is all these flashbacks to her other life. And you're like, are they all these people coming back? No.
oh no, it's not flashbacks. It's her saying goodbye.
Is
That's
it?
another deal she made with the goddess. She's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, if I died, you have to let me go back.
No, but I mean the OP with the music playing and all that is all footage of her prior life for the first minute. Only the last 30 seconds of it is to do with where she's ended up.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch it again. I don't
Yeah.
remember this at all.
Yeah. I mean, we skipped the opening because it's not very memorable. And that kind of adds to it. I was just like, that's a bit of an odd choice. Like, we're not going to see any of these characters again, so why are they being shown? So, yeah. Anyway, last thing, Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, we talk about this almost every other week, but that's because by far this is one of the, like, Jujutsu Kaisen and Frieren are just this season. Like, for the team,
Smashing it. Yeah.
most of our top two, along with Birdhead.
Yes, Birdhead. That's the one.
You can't
Birdhead
remember.
is the one.
You can't remember the name
It's the
of it.
one with the bird head. It's
Shangri-La.
Shangri-La
Yeah.
Frontier.
Shangri-La Frontiers.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go. Got there in the
See.
end. So yeah, those three are kind of like across the team. All of us are watching at least one or two of them. But Jujutsu Kaisen is just whoa. We're hitting the sharp and pointy end of it. And as you shared in chat, in the manga, the current hit rate of people who appear on the cover and are still alive is about 50%.
Yeah.
It's so brutal.
Yeah.
But it checks out, you know?
Yeah.
Because you can always kind of tell in a lot of animes when someone's going to get it.
Yeah.
Because they spend, actually not just anime, you know, any type of visual media or whatever, they spend time with the audience, if you will.
Yeah.
Like trying to build them up as a person so it affects the reader, the viewer more. And that's actually one of the reasons why I stopped watching Doctor Who, because they'd be like, here's a new shiny character.
Yeah.
Do you love them yet? Do you love them yet? Do you love them yet? Oh, they're dead.
What
I'm
a
so sad you're sad. I was like,
surprise.
I'm not sad. I don't know that person.
I don't like
care.
the person. What was
And
the
it
point of
becomes
this?
so formulaic that I was like,
Yeah.
for sure.
can't do this anymore.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like, I mean, you remember I was trying to catch up on Doctor Who for a while there, and I got to, I think, about halfway through 13th Doctor. It's the older guy.
Peter Capaldi.
And I was just like, I'm just done. This is just so chaotic
yeah,
and
so
insane.
unfortunate because I love Peter Capaldi.
Same, he's a
So I
great
was like,
actor.
oh.
And you can see, like, as the show goes on, he gets better at playing the Doctor, but the stories get
Yeah.
worse. So it's like, okay, I'm done. Apparently, the most recent David Tennant reboots are equally poorly written. So that's a
They just keep bringing him back. But
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love David Tennant, but it feels
so
like
much. Just let him breathe.
well,
Yeah.
it's because he's the one who kind of re-established Doctor Who.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
no offense to Christopher Eccleston, but he did feel like the stepping stone to bring the story
I
up.
loved Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, oh, me too.
I went back and watched his season,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually appreciated him more than
Mm-hmm.
Tennant and Matt Smith, because the way that he played the Doctor was so earnest.
Yeah.
You know, he was completely different. He wasn't showy, really.
No.
He wasn't, look at me, I'm so kooky, haha. He was just genuinely, he was happy, but you could tell there was something going on. Like, I think he did a really good job.
Oh, look, I think Eccleston did a great job, but my family coming from the northeast of the UK, I'm used to seeing Christopher Eccleston swearing up a storm and beating up people in alleys.
Nice.
So it was a real, like,
If Doctor Who did that, I'd get back on
I
board.
know, right? there's a really good sketch as well that was done, and I think he actually went and played himself in it. And it's a sketch where he comes home and all his family is wearing like Star Trek shirts, and they're like, "No, you can't come here this Christmas. You've betrayed the family creed." And he's like, "Fine, I'll only do it for one season." They're like, "Right, and then you can have your red shirt back." It's like, all right, that's pretty funny. I think it was like a red nose day gag.
I was going to say that sounds like a red nose day gag.
Yeah, but it was really well done. Anyway, Jujutsu Kaisen. Lots of people are getting hurt, injured, dying. It's a really brutal season. It is.
This season means business.
I mean, have you seen that the opening changed?
No, as in just this week or
No, the last 2 weeks. That ever since the Shibuya incident, ever since the big part of it, their opening is different. The characters that have died
are no longer in
are
it.
no longer in it. And then the part of Shibuya that has been affected when they do
has
the
no
top,
lights.
it doesn't
Yeah.
have any lights. It's all
Yeah.
black.
I did notice
And then
that.
the other scene where all of the people were standing there together, those are all the people that died. So they specifically made the opening. There's like
Yeah.
a scene just before that part of the
Yeah.
opening where you have like all these different characters there. They are no longer there because they put them all in the same scene together so they could remove them.
It's very
I
smart.
love it when they
I
change
thought I was
the OP.
wondering when I was watching it, but I was like half asleep the last
Yeah.
last episode we watched, and I was sitting there going, "I'm sure they'll do something with the OP, but I can't."
There's
see
also
how
ending
fire the
changes
OP
as
is,
well.
though?
Yeah, it's so good.
ending
It's
changes.
so good.
Yeah, we're special.
So beautiful. Yeah, the lyrics are weird, but like the beat of the song.
Oh yeah,
A+.
The lyrics are pretty good when you actually look at what they mean and stuff like that as
okay.
well, and how it's kind of like taunting these people like for being this powerful, like you're supposed
yes,
to.
they're the
Oh,
special
nice.
people.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
the special people who but with that comes pain. So yeah, but yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen is fantastic. This season's got I think 2 episodes left, and it's going to hit hard.
I think I know where it's going to end, and
Yeah.
the closer we get, the more I think I'm right. So I'm intrigued.
It's going to be good, and
And
the
then-
animation's just like
Yeah.
I know, like one of the creators, like one of the animation directors, was like crying.
Well, a
saying,
lot of them are like a lot of them were. I think there was like 20 or 30 people that worked on this that have gone to Twitter to talk about it because their experience is not good.
Yeah.
Considering that they have to finish the episodes within the week as well, so like
Which is
they have
just
the bones of it
unrealistic.
beforehand, but then they don't animate it fully until the week of, basically,
my
which is
God.
like how they used to do anime, and we thought that they kind of went past that when they started doing seasonal anime in a way that it's like not like Naruto, how that was just every single week. So that's why you have so much filler, because they're just continuously like doing that. Because it's seasonal, you think that they would have more time to work on it, but that's not the case. They just go from
like some studios
things.
have made a conscious decision to avoid doing that.
Yeah.
Kyoto Animation's one of them, for instance. Kyoto Animation now only put shows out when they're ready to go out. They don't do the rush. But Mappa is very much old school.
Yeah.
Like, they're still doing the week to week. That's why, like, One Direct Priority was a dumpster fire at the end. Like, they ran out of time to animate stuff. It had episodes delayed. They had to cut story arcs and stuff for it. And then you had that awful final episode, which just kind of undermined the entire show. But yeah, Mappa is going to get themselves, like they're already getting themselves in big trouble with the industry, and it's only going to get worse because people will just not work for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good the animation that you're involved in is. It's not good enough to be on the resume if it implies that you'll take that sort of behavior.
Yeah, I mean, despite all the things that they've gone through, they've still produced really great episodes, even though some of these episodes were like, I don't know, some people said they were like 30% finished animation-wise. You can tell whenever it goes dim, that means it has not been completed.
Yeah.
So they're still like animating that. It's supposed to be completely animated for the DVD release. But like these animators that are working on it are still doing such a fantastic job despite these horrible conditions that they're under. Like the time restraints that they're under is insane. But they're still like managed to produce one of the greatest like seasons, like seasonal animes, you know. It's just and
this is the thing, like I actually don't mind when the animation quality drops because they've chosen the correct scenes to push the animation quality up in. So it's almost like they have a baseline across it, and then they sprinkle in the parts which need that exceptional look to it. But
you know what this means, right? We got to go through like the last episode and find the jankiest frames. That's one of my favorite things when you see, when you like accidentally pause it and you're like, oh my god. Wow.
But just know that any scene that Sukuna is in is just like a fantastic scene. Anything that he's not in might potentially not be as great.
Well, I mean, do you remember like the pain fight in Naruto? Like that is notoriously well known for being badly animated. And the excuse used at the time was that, oh no, we wanted to try a different animation style for it. Why would you try a different animation style for the biggest fight of an arc? You don't. What you're saying is someone messed up. But anyway, Jujutsu Kaisen, go watch it. Frieren, go watch it. Scott Pilgrim anime, if you're a Scott Pilgrim fan, maybe check it out. Might be up your alley.
But watch the others first.
Watch the others first.
That one can go towards the bottom of the list by the sounds of it.
I Will Survive Using Potions is good. Undead Unluck is good this season as well, though we can't technically legally watch it in Australia. There are ways.
What happened to Zom 100?
Zom 100's final episodes come out on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Yeah,
I'm
because they
looking forward
got
to that.
like delayed and then they didn't have the time slot anymore. So,
Also, like Zom 100 unfortunately got put under the pressure that because they're just the production studio, they aren't the lead one. So Bug Studios? I think it was Bug.
I think so, yeah.
Either way, they were put under pressure basically to put it out the same way Mappa's done it, and that's why it got delayed. Anyway, let's move on to what we've our main topic because it's a Miyazaki.
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
It's a bathhouse for the spirits.
Totoro came back, Dad. I saw him.
It's Laputa, a floating island.
Miyazaki.
Yes, it is time to talk about The Boy and the Heron, and right on cue, our cat has wandered into the room. He's
Speaking of
sniffing
the
up
boy.
a storm. Speaking of the boy and the heron, this boy wants to eat the heron. So The Boy and the Heron has been in production since, 2014, I think, was when it was started.
Technically.
Yeah, so Miyazaki announced his retirement back on September 2013, but reversed the decision after working on the short film Borrow the Caterpillar. That was released in 2018. He then began storyboarding for a new feature project in July 2016. Okay, so maybe not 10 years, but 8, 7 were...
A good chunk of time.
It's a good chunk of
It's a
time.
good chunk of someone's life.
But let's also not forget that COVID obviously
Yeah.
takes away a
Yeah.
significant amount of that time.
Yeah.
So the film was announced in 2017 with a target release date of the 2020 Summer Olympics, but obviously by May 2020, only 36 minutes of the film had been hand-drawn by 60 animators with no set deadline, which is good because
I agree.
set deadlines result in this. Now, production spanned approximately 7 years, facing delays due to COVID, as we mentioned, and Miyazaki slowed animation pace before nearing completion in October 2022. Financing the project involved streaming deals for the previous films, which makes a lot of sense as to why they finally went onto streaming platforms. And according to producer Toshio Suzuki, The Boy and the Heron is the most expensive film ever produced in Japan. Now,
You know what?
yeah,
It looks it.
it looks it.
To
It
be
does.
fair, it was immaculate.
So this film is, honestly, it takes the best elements of every Miyazaki film I've seen and puts them together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
like you can see elements of it from Totoro with how the forests are drawn. You can see elements of Porco Rosso with how the ships are drawn and the ocean is drawn. And the houses and construction. Also, like, maybe this was just me, but I mentioned to Kenny when we were watching it, it kind of looks like the house looks a little bit design-wise like the Ghibli Museum.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it does kind of.
But also, this is supposed to be technically an autobiography of his life. So you will see that in a way, because of this being his escape from real life, which is what the film is about, is an escape, everything has some sort of capacity of what his life has encapsulated, which even includes like Easter eggs about Disney and things like that as well. And the fact that the boy is apparently, I think, roughly the same age as his grandson, and it's supposed to be a letter to his grandson about how he's going to grow up
Yeah.
and what world he decides to live in, which is also why it's called How Do You Live? And it goes into the original story from like 1913, which it's based on,
Yeah.
which discusses that and existentialism and all those kinds of things, and how Miyazaki has used this world as an escape his whole life, and whether his grandson or other people would choose to escape through his films or will choose a different life or choose
Also,
That
different
like,
makes a lot of sense.
without spoiling anything, the sort of finale and the contrast between the boy and the great granduncle really does have a vibe of Miyazaki talking to his grandson.
Yeah.
When you look at it, he's saying, you know, you can take over this world that I've created. You can build your own sort of thing. And no offense to Goro, but Goro's not going to be, Miyazaki-san is not going to be the one to take over it. Like, he's, no offense to him, but he's nowhere near as good as his dad.
Well, you can't recreate, and
Yeah.
living under that shadow is
Exactly.
And I
Like-
think that's kind of the point of
Yeah.
the film as well, because in the end, spoiler alert, I guess technically, is that he doesn't choose that world.
No.
So, like, he's not expecting his grandson or anybody else to actually take over this world for him. It's just the last remnants of this other story that he has created, which is why it was going to be his final film.
Yeah, thinking about it in that, because I didn't know that context. The master is so revered in that world,
Yeah.
but he's struggling to keep it together,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he knows his time is coming up,
Yeah.
and he has a successor if the successor wants it.
Yeah. It's really quite poignant when you think about it that way as well. Interestingly, it does say the screenplay does draw heavily from Miyazaki's childhood, explores the themes of coming of age and coping with a world marked by conflict and loss. It is
PTSD.
Yeah, just a bit. The Japanese novel was How Do You Live? 1937, so just before the Second World War broke out, which is really interesting because this is set during the Second World War. Though it's like, I swear, when the movie starts up, the first scene is fire and explosions and burning. And I immediately thought, oh my God, it's going to be like Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah. It's the same sort of vibe in the beginning.
Yeah, it's not. It's
The
not.
animation during that scene was new. I have never seen anything convey the panic and the chaos of a wood fire, a wood structure fire, in a time where, you know, you're in between technologies. So you know there's so much that can be done, but you can't do it. And there's just people everywhere not knowing what to do. It was so amazing.
It was incredibly
I've
well
never
done.
seen animation like that before.
So we should probably give like the synopsis. But The Boy and the Heron is about a young boy named Mahito who's yearning for his mother after she passes and ventures into a world shared by the living and the dead. There, death comes to an end and life finds a new beginning. It is a semi-autobiographical fantasy from the mind of Hayao Miyazaki. The story is set during 1943, during the Pacific War, and it's 12-year-old Mahito. So it starts in Tokyo initially, but then they move out to the countryside with his father, and his father, by the sounds of it, has married his past wife's sister. So there's a lot of kind of... Cool.
Which, you know...
Back then was kind of normal.
Yeah.
But
it's like in various like olden fashion, and
kind of
especially
keeping
in
the
Japan,
family.
you just go on to the next person.
Yeah.
Or even if you've already been arranged to be engaged, if that person that you're engaged to dies, you
go to the next one.
sibling.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's... I think it's also worth noting that there's a lot which is not explicitly said.
Yes.
Like, there is a lot to it which is kind of left open to interpretation, especially even that point about it being his previously his aunt. So there's a lot that, younger audiences might not connect with, which in some situations in the film's probably a good thing. In other situations of the film, it's kind of important context. The dub, as we've mentioned many times before, the cast is phenomenal and it does hit all the right notes. Now, Tifa, you've went and seen both the dub and the sub.
Yes.
And you were saying they're pretty comparable.
Yes, so the script that they use for the dub is the same as the subtitles for the subbed, basically. There's only a few little changes, but it's word for word pretty much the same.
Nice.
Which is really interesting, but not everything they say in Japanese is actually exactly the same, obviously, as the subtitles. So there are some differences, but as an English audience, it doesn't matter which one you end up choosing because it's both going to be the exact same context.
Yeah, I find translating between Japanese and English, there's a lot more you kind of add into the English language, like a lot more subtleties, we have a lot more descriptive languages, adjectives, verbs. We fill out our sentences a lot more, but in Japan, it's implied in Japanese.
There's a lot of words in Japanese which have implications further than their actual stated word.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that as well, like, I don't think I can give an example for this film because I can't remember one, but like some things they'll use an older term or verb for it as well, which technically means something different than what the current term or verb means of that word as well. So it kind of changes the meaning of things as well. So, but there's only little instances of that, and there is one point where it's not that instance specifically, but there is one point where what they say in Japanese is different, and it's right at the end, and I don't know if it's a spoiler really, but
how far in the end are we talking?
Like
up on the hilltop or
no, before they leave?
Oh, okay, like it with the room.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Oh, we'll have to...
It's a very
when they go
slight
through the
thing,
doors?
just before then.
Oh, okay.
We'll have to go back and watch it.
It's a very slight thing where he says something instead of saying the aunt's name or whatever, because he says the aunt's name and then eventually like calls her mother. He just continuously says, I think he just says her name basically, but he also does say Okasan, but it's not to her. But the way that it was written in the English kind of changes it a little bit. It's like a very subtle thing that I don't think. I don't think it matters that much, but the point of the scene is that eventually he calls her mother. But in that scene, they very much differentiate between mother and the aunt. So it's more of an obvious differentiation.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see because there will be people out there when this does come on home media who don't like the initial subtitles and will reword it. So there will be fan subs, which will probably try and put that in, which would be interesting.
It's like a very small thing that doesn't really matter that much in the long run. It's just things that you just kind of notice and you're like, oh, okay. But the actual subtitling itself, so like if you were to say watch the dub and have subtitles on, it would just match.
Yeah.
So
it's the original script is not necessarily exactly identical for the dub or sub that they made the basis of.
Yeah, but it's not like one of those situations where you watch the dub and then you like try to put subtitles on and the subtitles are completely different because it's matching to the sub instead. So, yeah.
No, that's good. This film, as we mentioned, showcases pretty much the best of Miyazaki's animation style and everything. And I am aware, obviously, he's not the only animator on it, but he is the head honcho and the boss, and he has the final say.
It's very, very him. So like when I was watching it, it just made me nostalgic for his other films.
I know, right?
Especially in how kind of like fluffy everything is. You know, like the skirts kind of like puff out, and you know, just everything is like got this softness to it that's so beautiful and
the classic serving of that Miyazaki fluffy, beautiful food.
Yes.
Like the insanely thick butter and jam. And
there were
bread.
two girls next to me at the cinema who were like, yes, love that Ghibli food.
It was beautiful. And also like this is has been screened in IMAX format as well, which I don't think any of the other Ghibli films have been done, which is saying a lot. Also, and we've discussed this a lot on the podcast, the news section, that this had no formal advertising agreement set up by the studio. So any advertising you see is actually from third parties because they want to promote it, which from a financial standpoint is very smart.
I think the only time we started getting teaser trailers for it was when it started doing film festival circuits. Before that we had nothing until it started, because obviously the film festivals showcase the teaser trailers or the trailers for each of the things involved in the festival. So
this is true. This has been actually nominated for tons of things already, and technically it's been out for a week.
And it's number one at the box office in the US.
It is.
In the US?
Yeah. Opened at number one. It's incredible. So I've got the box office mojo stats. We are a week after release. So domestic release for the US was December 8th. It was the same for here. Japan opened July 14th. It made 56 million in Japan. It is already, I think it's still open in Japan. It's just like less screenings. France opened on November 1 and that's hit, what is going on with these figures? Oh, it's the opening week versus the gross week. So opening week in France was just shy of $5 million. It's on 11.3 at the moment. Domestic in America, 13 million on the opening weekend, 19 million at the moment. And it's only a week in. So, okay, pretty impressive. Here in Australia, we know it's made 842, but we've got obviously a much, as in 842,000, not million or dollars. It's made $800. Yeah. Actually, wasn't there a film we looked at which like made only $800?
I think it was
the live action.
Yeah, of the night one.
Yeah.
The one that Mark and you was in.
Yeah. Knights of the Zodiac. Yeah, which had like no advertising. Its highest grossing area was Mexico for some reason.
But now that One Piece is out, Netflix has the rights to the film, and then they just advertise it as like Makenyu shirtless.
It's hilarious. But yeah, look, either way, Boy and the Heron is doing numbers already. It's already being confirmed that it's qualified for the Oscars. There's a whole load of other nominations, which we'll go through when we get to the news, because it is nomination season and there's a lot out. But one of the things that we do need to talk about is the dub cast, because holy cow, Robert Pattinson.
I absolutely adore that he came into the studio for his first day. He had all these like voice recordings on his phone of different like voices that he would been like practicing with and stuff. Like he was fully invested.
So ready. He's like, I'm going to be in this
and
film.
Then he only filmed for 2 days.
Yeah.
That was it, and he was done.
God.
They were like, wow.
Also, like the amount of people in this who
they don't sound like themselves.
Well, like William Dafoe as the Noble Pelican, like after that scene, because it's only a short scene, we're talking 5-6 minutes of dialogue. After that, you're like, Wait, that was Defoe.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Even Florence Pugh did a good job
Oh,
because
she's
I
amazing.
was watching it. I was like, I don't want to hear Florence Pugh again, but she actually did a
Doesn't
really
sound
good
quite
job.
like
yeah,
her.
it was slightly off to what her usual voice is.
Well, Hamill as the grand uncle as well. Like, we know Hamill can do a massive range of
course,
voices.
Yeah.
And that, like, you almost couldn't tell because I'm
still
so
felt
used
different.
I'm so used to thinking of him as the Joker
Yeah.
or as Luke Skywalker or in House of Usher, like that voice, because that
Gosh, he's
completely
so
different voice and
good
persona
in House
again.
of Usher.
Nothing to do with the musician. Just it's Edgar Allan Poe. But let's also talk about Dave Bautista as the Parakeet King.
Oh, he was so good.
Like, I was watching it, I'm like,
I'm so happy for him that he got to
Yes.
play the
I
Parakeet
know.
King in
It's
this
such-
film.
it's a perfect
worked for
role.
him.
Yeah.
Because obviously everyone just thinks of him as Drax, and Drax.
But he has done a lot
He's
of
done
other
a lot of
roles
other
that
really
are
good
really
roles.
good.
Yeah,
I want to see him cosplay as the Parakeet King.
He totally would, though.
I know.
would. He would.
Dave, if you're listening.
I also like the fact that they've got quite a diverse cast. Like, they've actually hired people of, interesting or, cultural backgrounds as well that relate to it. So Lady Hime is done by Karen Fukuhara.
Who I love. I love her.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the funniest thing ever. So Karen, in everything that she's in, Suicide Squad, The Boys, Bullet Train, she does not talk. She doesn't talk in any of her roles. And then she was announced for this, and I was like,
What's she going to sound
she's
like?
gonna talk?
What? Could you imagine? It's her, but she doesn't say anything.
Well, it's kind of like when the voice actress for Nezuko in the season 1
Oh
of Demon
my
Slayer got
God.
best voice acting. Everyone's like,
Are you joking?
But like when she was announced, I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah.
Finally.
yeah.
She can speak.
And Gemma Chan, who is the Natsuko, so the mother, she's been in...
She's in Crazy Rich Asians. She
Yeah.
is in
love that
Eternals. She is in...
She was in Transformers The Last Night as
Was she?
Quintessa, as one of the robots.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know, right?
She's also she's in another series. It's like a BBC series where she's like a robot as well, like a humanoid type thing. She's really good in that. I just really like her as an actress. She has like
Yeah.
a very calming voice, and so I think it worked really well for this.
Also, Christian Bale finally coming back to a Ghibli film as the father. That was really cool. Like, he almost didn't sound...
He sounded very similar to Hal, though.
Yeah.
So I was like, but my favorite line, he says a line and it's like, I'm coming for vengeance or something
Yeah.
like that. And I
Yeah.
started laughing so hard.
Oh, yeah. It's when he's saying
get
it's
your
like a
vengeance.
man
Yeah,
will get vengeance.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you're like... He's 12. Are you going to give him your sword?
Like, okay,
No, he's
Batman.
like, your dad will get vengeance.
Yeah. I will have vengeance. I will have my vengeance. Luco Padovan is he's
The
young.
kid,
He
yes.
plays Makito.
He's in
Mahito?
Mahito.
He's in the TV show You. In the first season, he plays the neighbor's kid.
He plays a jet in Super Wings, the TV show, which is based off
He
cars.
did a great job.
Yeah, he
did a
really did.
Good
The
job.
thing is, though, so he's the only character and voice actor that I preferred in the sub.
Oh, you prefer the Japanese
I
boy.
preferred the Japanese boy. Even though the Japanese boy did sound a little older,
Yeah.
there is something, because this character does not speak words very often, he doesn't speak very much. There is something about when you watch Japanese anime, they make so many voices, like noises
Yeah.
and grunts and things like that. And I
my
felt
God,
like
do they?
I felt like in the dub, it didn't feel like he did that as much, and it didn't feel like it just kind of felt like, oh, they're just grunts or whatever. Whereas
Yeah.
in the Japanese, it feels like there's emotion behind each and every single one that he does and where he's placed it and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of preferred
Oddly,
that.
despite how young he looks, he's 20.
Yeah.
He's just got a very short face, so
What?
he looks childish, yeah.
Yeah.
My God.
I know,
I
right?
thought he was like 15.
I thought he was like 15, but he's in...
I've only seen like 1 or 2 photos of him though.
Yeah, it looks a bit older now, I think.
He does. The updated one on the IMDb definitely looks a bit more mature, but he still looks kind of like a kid. You know how like the kid from Love Actually always looks really young?
Thomas Brody Sangster?
Yeah, he always,
Yeah.
he's got a baby face, and I think this kid's probably kind of like that same style of.
I love Thomas
I don't know,
Brody
to me,
Sangster.
he looks like what they did with the cast of Stranger Things, which was dress them up.
Yeah.
They were young, and then they just dressed them old, like for the red
Yeah.
carpets and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what he looks like. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, dude, but
He's also in the Netflix show You
Yeah, I just said that.
and Are You Afraid of the Dark? Sorry, my bad. I'm multitasking and I'm male. How did you think this was going to go?
I feel like that came out more like aggressive than I meant it
so
to
good.
be.
So good.
So mean.
We're taking out your apology.
I'm cutting it
Let you
out.
mean it.
Interestingly, in the film No Hard Feelings, he plays the frail boy at the house party, which is a very odd name for a role, and I'm guessing it's like the one scene.
That's awesome.
But look, this film very much follows like in the footsteps, I'd say, of Spirited Away, where it is taking from the real world into another world, but not because they have been spirited away, but because there is a way to get back, if that makes sense.
I actually feel like it was way less linear
Yeah.
than
I mean, it
many
is
of his
time and-
other
Yeah.
stories. You know, I was watching it and I was like, so what's the actual story here other than he goes into this other world to find his aunt?
Well, because it's kind of interesting because the world that he goes into isn't technically a world.
Yeah.
It is, but it isn't, because what it is just a encapsulation of other times.
It's a nexus point where everything is colliding together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of different worlds, different times, all sorts of different possibilities.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because, you can't really describe this film linearly.
No.
If that makes sense, because it's all,
I think
it is just like...
at a surface level, it's like a kid goes through the
Yeah.
loss of his mother and finds himself going into a fantasy world to figure out where he stands in life.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much, as you said, that's from a top level standpoint, that's what it is. But there is so much more going on thematically. It's also interesting that, there's a lot of behaviors exhibited by Mahito that is just very in line with what you would expect a child who's dealing with trauma and stress to do, such as like, the first day of school and the events that pulled out from after that. It's very in line and believable. Whereas a lot of the time when we see people depicting children, and this is obviously an art for Miyazaki, he's so good at it, for depicting young children learning about the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, his first gut reaction to the heron is to try and kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if I saw a heron with teeth, I'd be a bit concerned too. So like,
I hadn't seen the teeth yet.
but also the heron is like, you think the boy and the heron, because of the title, that the heron's going to be in almost every scene. The heron's in like, I don't know, a third to a half of the film.
The heron is only a gateway to where you
Yeah.
want to go. It's like
Yeah.
the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
it's like, I think that they tried to change the title to make it more appealing to
Yeah.
maybe a younger audience as well, but the original title works better.
It does.
Which we had children in our...
We had children in ours.
Like literal...
Yeah.
Don't take your children to this film, okay?
Well, look, it's
like
PG for a reason.
They'll enjoy
there are
the
themes in
beauty
there.
of it. They'll be like, oh, this is magical and fantastical. They won't understand the
Well,
film.
I took my 3 and 6-year-old nieces. They would be sobbing at the pelican, oozing blood from every orifice.
Yep.
They-
And they would be
I love
freaking
Princess
out when they cut up the
Mononoke,
giant
don't they?
fish. Yeah.
Fish. There are some scenes that would be very scary to children.
Yeah.
I think they could have gone scarier in some of
Oh,
the scenes
definitely.
as well.
But like the shadow men in the boats and things, I'm
Yeah.
like, this is not for your 4-year-old child. Please take them out. Like, come
Well,
on,
I mean,
man.
in fairness, in our session, the 4-year-old child wasn't watching. He was going backwards and forwards to the mum to get snacks.
Probably because he was like, I don't want to watch this. This is weird and scary. I couldn't even watch a Disney film with trolls in it with my niece because she thought it was scary.
Oh. As in, like, trolls, like the puffy hair
No,
90s thing?
no. The Disney one with the 2 brothers that were blue trolls. So they were like anthropomorphic, humanized trolls. They were just, I don't know, she was just convinced that they were evil because they were trolls and they were, I don't know.
Trolls bad.
Yeah, trolls bad. They were blue.
Don't go on
She was
internet.
like, no.
Or under bridges. Fair, though. So one thing that we do need to mention is that this film is hand-drawn. not many anime are hand-drawn anymore.
Yeah, I think the last instance I can remember of like a film being hand drawn was Princess Kaguya, which is also Studio Ghibli.
The other thing, the last instance of hand drawn that I'm aware of was that final scene in Neon Genesis, the fourth film, and they had to go to Studio Ghibli to use the equipment because no one else has it, and that was at least 3 years ago now. So, it's not 3 years ago, it's 2 years ago. But that's still that means that it sounds like Ghibli's the only studio that still has that traditional hardware. And they're the only ones who can do that hand-drawn stuff.
And that's why it would have cost so much as well, because the amount of time, if they're starting from 2016, to get people to hand-draw each of these scenes, and obviously the landscapes and everything of it, because you got so many different sectors of so many different people for so many different things.
It also explains why they didn't want to spend too much money on promoting it, because they knew they couldn't afford it. If they had to sell off the rights to all the other films,
what was the official cost?
We don't have it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
We do not know what the official cost is, but if you think about it from at least keeping things on a low budget, you've got 60 animators plus Miyazaki, who's an establishment of the studio, so he'll earn a lot. So if we just think about it in, let's just say in US dollars, each person has to earn, say, $50,000 US dollars a year as income. So you got that times 60.
No.
I know it's probably more.
I'm pretty sure the average wage over there is like 30,000.
Okay, well, I'm bringing up.
in America.
Think that, yeah, no, but I do think that for their studio, I think they might have a higher precedence of how much they earn potentially.
Yeah.
All right, so look, just on, if we split the difference and say 40,000, right? Just for 60 animators for 1 year is 2.4 million. So, and then it was they wouldn't be doing it for all of that, but if we just include all other production costs, because they'll get then other people in to do other things, you times that by the 7 years it was in production, that's 16 million.
Yeah, and then you got to add on
16.8.
everything else,
so. And then
and how much the voice actors cost for both sides of English and Japanese as well. Which I think it is a better decision to spend that money on better voice actors or higher names, obviously, than having spent it on marketing. Because as they had stated, Miyazaki is a well-known name. People are going to come to this theater because it's Miyazaki.
Also,
they did so well getting Robert Pattinson in, because he basically did all the advertising for them.
Yeah.
People just went nuts. They lost their shots
Robert Pattinson.
when they found out it was him.
Also, the fact that when it is on the distributor to promote the film. So by not having to distribute to promote it internationally from Ghibli's standpoint, that saved them money, and they then, with G Kids doing the distribution, get a share of the international release. So that allows them to then promote it in their markets where they feel it will best work. So honestly, we did becry it a bit when they said they weren't going to promote it, but it now makes a lot of sense.
Well, it was more that Miyazaki himself had stated that he was unsure about this decision that the studio had made not to advertise.
Yeah.
And that was because they had belief in his name alone, and Miyazaki does not have that belief in his name alone.
He's a very humble dude.
Yeah.
God, it'd be amazing to meet him.
It's almost as if he's a master who thinks he can't keep his world together, even though it's a huge world that everybody's in love with.
Yeah, and that there's an army of parakeets after him. I love the parakeets so much. It was the funniest
motif.
part.
That one parakeet that just suddenly started speaking in an almost Australian accent,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure that's Dan Stevens, who plays the Beast in the Beauty and the Beast live action, and he's in the Eurovision movie and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that was him, because I couldn't find an Australian actor on the list. And he's the closest that I could find.
I love the parakeet that would just have a knife, like they always do.
Yeah, it's so wild. You're like,
They're ready to eat.
can we talk about this? Can we maybe put the knife down? Oh no! I love this film, and it is. I don't know if I had to do my top 5 Ghibli films. I don't know where it would sit, but I think it might be in it. I think it might be in that top 5.
It's in my top 5.
It is a phenomenal film.
I think it's number 2.
Yeah, behind Mononoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Probably number 3 for me.
Yeah, because it's just phenomenal. And look, if Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget beats it at the Oscars, I'm going to be really annoyed.
I don't think that's even getting nominated. If it does, I will be very surprised. I think everyone would be like,
Patterson
what?
is
the chicken nugget.
He would, though. He absolutely
Freaking
would.
would. So look, highly recommend you go and see it, especially if you can see it in the cinemas. The dub is phenomenal. This is kind of what we've come to expect from the dubs that are done for Ghibli films, and it has paid dividends, and it is good. It is well done. So make sure you go and see it when you can. I cannot recommend it enough. I think it's a wholehearted, like, for me, it's a 5 stars. It's a perfect Ghibli film. Like, are there going to be little bits and pieces in it that we could critique? Probably, but that's not what we're here for. We're talking about the experience of watching it and, you know, actually considering like this is...
I'm here to critique it. I'm here to critique everything, but I actually don't have any critiques.
Oh, look, I'm sure we could find something we tried hard enough, but I don't want to try that hard. So
No, if you're
I
looking
think a
for
lot
it,
of the
then
critiques would be within the voice acting comparatively.
Yeah.
I think would be the main thing. And I think that some of the scenes could have been a little creepier because of like just animation wise, like when you see some of the like face melts when I think that they could have really gone with something a little bit darker because the music was so dark. The atmosphere of this like gothic library setup was like, you know, so they could have had it just like a tiny bit. Like, I get that he's still, it's not like pre-Disney days. You know, pre-Disney days, like Mononoke and everything else, Grave of the Fireflies, all that kind of stuff feels kind of darker in a sense, and this almost gets there, but he kind of still has that level of Totoro and Ponyo.
Like it was
like,
dark, but
like,
it was a fluffy dark.
I wish
it was
that
still
some
squishy,
of those parts
you know?
that were kind of going in that dark road went just a tiny bit darker, and then those fluffy parts were still like as fluffy. I feel like it would have been kind of an interesting balance, especially as a semi-autobiographical kind
I
of
think
thing.
I do see your point, but I also am aware that he made this for his grandson, so he can't make it too dark.
Yeah.
Whereas if he wasn't making it for his grandson, it probably wouldn't have been such a good film as it is, because there is so much passion in it.
Artistically, like those scenes, like
There's a lot of love in this film.
But yeah, so go watch it. Highly recommend it. Support it where you can, because we want another one, Miyazaki. We want another one. And that's kind of all I got to say on it.
Kawaii-Fi!
Tonight on Anime Communique.
Great story, compelling and rich.
Nothing brings ratings up like a little controversy.
All right, first controversy of the show. Film studios have revealed plans in the US to lobby for anti-piracy site blocking. We already have that here.
And guess what?
Don't
do nothing.
So, Deadlines reported that a top executive from the Motion Picture Association has urged lawmakers to pass legislation for site-blocking piracy sites. The hearing took place before the US House Judiciary Subcommittee on Courts, Intellectual Property and the Internet. Wow, that is an odd house. Cool. Anyway, they're suggesting legislation is required to make internet providers and third-party intermediaries block access to piracy sites if requested by content companies. There is no site blocking bill on the table, and there is no legislation in the US for this. This is already in place in the UK, France, Australia, where we are, Spain, Denmark, and Singapore. We've had it here for like a decade. So, yeah, I can't believe that this is like... Like, why are you so far behind?
Also, just the fact that basically every US streaming service now has as their like first tier that you pay for includes ads, and then everything else is more expensive. And now we want to block piracy. It's not gonna work, guys.
Yeah, it's like, guys, you make enough money. Please, just shut up.
Yeah, exactly. It's greed as well, because none of it's going back to the actors.
No, of course not.
So, you know, all the actual staff who are involved in the creative process. So, the film studios have previously made attempts to pursue similar legislation. The last major one was called the Stop Online Piracy Act, or SOPA, taking place over a decade ago. The bill caused significant controversy at the time, with pushback from internet providers and the public, and did not pass. So, that's possibly what might happen, or they might have a watered-down version, which is interesting, because you'd think the US, of all places, would, like, you know, capitalism, woo woo.
I mean, considering
no
that
offense to our
Australia
US
didn't
fans.
even talk about piracy for so long, and like just internet laws in Australia are basically non-existent because our government does not know how the internet works.
I know.
I would have assumed that America would have been
Further ahead than us. Yeah.
No, we all watched that TikTok questioning and the Facebook questioning.
Oh, yeah.
We all know that American
You see, it's a
TikTok
series
politicians
of
have no idea.
Now, Boy and the Heron news opens at number 1 in the US with $12 million. Godzilla -1, which we do need to talk about at some point. I think we might have to hit that up in the cinemas. That's at number 3 in its second week in the US as well.
Apparently it's amazing.
Yeah, so very keen. Variety reports that Boy and the Heron is the first original anime production to top the US box office.
Yeah.
So that's big. So pretty cool.
The cast, the English cast helps with that
A lot.
much.
Oh, yeah.
Because like they all just want to work with Miyazaki, no matter how small, no matter if it's a few seconds. Willem Dafoe was in there, like he wants to work with him, like you know.
He's like, I'll do it. I don't care. I'll just do everything.
Yeah.
All right. So leading on from that, it is awards season. So we've got the Golden Globes nominations. Boy and the Heron, Suzume, Super Mario Bros. Movie have received nominations for Best Motion Picture Animated. Boy and the Heron and composer Joe Hisashi's received nomination for Best Original Score in a Motion Picture.
So beautiful.
And the song Peaches from Super Mario Bros. Has been nominated for Best Original Song in a Motion Picture. So we'll know the results for Golden Globes on January 7th, but as we've previously stated, because all these awards are terrible and the people who are doing them are not really watching everything, we don't really trust
It's rigged.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Horror movies never get
legit.
nominated for any of these, even though some of the horror movies in the last 5 to 10 years have been exceptional.
And if the Game Awards are anything to go past, they'll just blast through the animation category and ignore it. So, yeah. Now, there's also the Critics' Choice Awards, where The Boy and the Heron's been nominated for Best Animated Feature and Godzilla -1 for Best Foreign Language Film. That's January 14th. There's more. The Chicago Film Critics Association has awarded The Boy and the Heron its Best Animated Feature Award, and Godzilla -1 won the Best Use of Visual Effects Awards. These were announced on December 12th. That's only 13 days after Godzilla's US premiere and 4 days after The Boy and the Heron came out. like, don't get me wrong. They've probably seen them elsewhere at the
because of the festivals.
the festivals. But that's impressive. That is just a
Come out strong at the end of the year.
This just defeated everything.
Yeah.
But there's more. The Boy and the Heron has been nominated for Best International Filmmaker at the Astra Film and Creative Awards. It's won Best Animation Award for the Los Angeles Film Critics Association, and it's won the Animated Feature Award from the Boston Society of Film Critics. I haven't heard of half of these before, and they kind of sound like it's a club in the city.
Well, it's so I think they're all part of some of the film festivals that this was actually played at. So.
That makes sense. Okay. And then there's the Saturn Awards, which I love because the Saturn Awards tend to be pretty good because it's all nerds and I'm a nerd. So, so Super Mario Bros. Movie and Suzume have been nominated for Best Animated Film, and the Chainsaw Man anime has been nominated for Best Animated TV Series or Special category. The Boy and the Heron is not in the running because it's missed the cutoff date, which was
I think for a lot of
but it should be part of next year's nominations apparently, and I don't think we have, I know there will be obviously anime films next year, but there's been nothing which has had the hype of Suzume or The Boy and the Heron that we've seen in the last few months. So
Suzume went hard on advertising as well.
It did. And we have confirmation of which anime films are eligible for the Oscars. Nominations are not out yet, but they've just announced it. So Boy and the Heron, Suzume, the first Slam Dunk movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. Slam Dunk did numbers.
Yeah,
it's
wild. No, it was like the #1 most popular in Japan when it came out.
Yeah.
It was like insane, but also the type of animation that they use for it is something that I think needs to be explored within some of these awards and stuff like that, because a lot of the time they don't actually think about how for their best animation film, like how the animation was actually done, which is part of the art form. So I think that needs to be considered a little more than they actually do.
So those three, plus the Blue Giant movie, which is the jazz one. Oh. Yep. And Lonely Castle in the Mirror, which we didn't even hear anything about. It's an independent anime film from Japan.
Oh my God, cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good, but also Oscars.
Yeah. So these all met the eligibility for the animated feature category, along with it's a total group of 33 titles that qualified this year for the selection pool. So that's
also,
a lot.
Boy and the Heron and Suzume were nominated for the Emmy Awards.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Godzilla Minus One is eligible for the visual effects category alongside 19 other titles. We don't know about the international film listings yet, though. So, interestingly, Godzilla Minus One has become the highest earning Japanese live action film in North America. It has earned $19.2 million US as of Friday. And it's also doing numbers. So there you go. We got a lot of news this season, this episode, but yeah. So now that we've gotten past all of the Oscars and the awards and all that, we can talk about series that are coming back. And guess what? My Hero Academia's got a 4th film on the way.
And a live action.
Wow.
And a live action. Yeah.
A live action?
Yeah.
Oh, my days.
Which I believe Netflix has the rights, or a company associated with Netflix or something has the rights for it.
I don't know why they're bothering now going through Netflix, because you have to keep up with One Piece.
Yeah. And well, I mean,
if
this
you're
is
going
the
to do
thing.
a live action.
Okay, so the thing is that the My Hero Academia one, the rights were bought before One Piece had come out as a live action. They just hadn't announced anything yet, but now that they have a writer and a producer and stuff like that,
It's the same as the Naruto
Yeah.
live action. They've had the rights for a long time.
That's been so long. That was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah. Same with Akira. Akira's live action film adaptation for Hollywood has been in production hell for 20 years.
Yeah.
Kira.
Yeah, I know, right? So, My Hero Academia's going to air a 4-episode recap in April before premiering season 7 in May. So, yeah, and that's if you remember where we left off, we've had a tiny bit of a time skip. Things have got pretty dark, and this season will be dark. It is right towards the end. The film is going to open in summer 2024, and it does feature the post-time skip Deku as on the cover, where he looks, down and rugged and, like he's been beaten up a fair bit. We do not know anything about where this sits in the timeline or the story arc, so that's going to be interesting. Demon Slayer's next season is arriving next year, and because of that, it is, of course, going back to cinemas.
Yep.
And so they're doing a world tour that will screen the final episode of the Swordsmith Village arc and the first episode of the Hishira training arc in Japan and 140 countries starting in February. It does sound like that means that, the anime will premiere in spring with a 1-hour episode. It does sound like it's probably going to be another thing the same as the other one that they did last time. I don't know if it's worth it. I really don't.
Last time I feel like it was actually worth seeing the final episodes in the cinema of the previous arc. So the one with the Entertainment District arc. So the ones with like Darky and her brother that I always forget the name of, because I don't care as much about it. Nobody does. But like those, like the fight sequences and stuff are really amazing to see on the big screen. I'm not sure if this is going to have the same effect as that.
I've just actually noticed something really weird in the listings here on ANN. So ANN have a podcast, Anime News Network. And their podcast episode is called "Is the Boy and the Heron Miyazaki's Worst Film?" Did you guys even watch the same film?
Okay, so
It's just
people don't like the film.
Why?
I don't know if you know this, but people really don't like the film. English audiences really do not like the film. They say it's too confusing to understand.
I can tell why. It's not a linear story.
Yeah.
It's not a story that you can say, here is the beginning, here is the middle, here is the end, and explain it to someone. You'd be like, oh, and then they were on a boat, and then they're like these white things, they float, but they're also like the next life people, but also then to be in that moment is like different to then like
this is the thing, like it was the same thing
storyline.
happened when the film where you fall into a dream.
Inception
Inception came
I was
out.
thinking that. I was like, are you talking about that?
Yeah, like Inception is very simple at its core concept, yet people thought it was the most mind-blowing thing. And it's like, it's because you're not paying attention while you're watching, folks.
Do you know how many people asked me, have you seen Donnie Darko? And did you understand it? Like they were some sort of guru because they understood it. And I was like, what are you understanding that you think is there that's not actually there?
The point of the
It's
film
like-
is that you kind of project on it in a way. So
Yeah.
So yeah, I will be interested. Actually, it's a good point. I will be interested to see how like.
I went through a lot of IMDb reviews and things like that, and people just like, critics love it because like I don't think you can technically say anything bad about this film. Like from a technical standpoint, if you are an actual critic and not just opinion piece sort of thing, like everything about
Not
this
just a
film
podcast?
is like yeah. Everything is like just technically beautiful. Everything works really well. The sounds, the voice acting. There's nothing that you can actually fault it on. Opinion wise, a lot of people don't like it because a lot of people said that it was too confusing for them to follow. And this was a lot of English reviews. Like it doesn't seem this way for the Japanese reviews, which is also why I thought that maybe watching the Japanese there would be something that we've missed or something that doesn't translate as well, but it's the same. So I think it's just
that kind of ethereal notion that it carries
it's just a
fits better
cultural
with
difference.
Japanese culture and their, historical stories, their fairy tales and all that stuff.
I think perhaps for
than
us,
ours.
the reason we find it really easy to view is because we're very familiar with Japan's media production and the type of content and ideas that they work with. If you came into this and you've, for argument's sake, only seen like
Disney,
you're probably not going to be understanding the concepts they're working with. And this is something we've always got to be aware of when we're talking
if you come
about.
into this film with your favorite animated film being Shrek, you ain't gonna get it.
Where's the dance number with the outro?
Where's the karaoke?
I think that a lot of people as well they don't have an open mind about like films can just be like just happening. They need it to be they need it to hit specific storyline points as a formula, and if it doesn't hit a formula it doesn't work the same in their minds. So
it's probably like because most American films are done in the 3-act order and Japanese films do not follow a 3-act order. That's also probably makes it feel a bit weird for it. Also, I bet you they probably felt real weird about the ending being so abrupt, because it wasn't abrupt, it's that everything had been resolved. You just didn't realize that it was resolved.
It felt abrupt, but
I just think like that final scene.
It was pretty abrupt
Like
because
that last
it just was
line.
like 2 years later, end. But
I still think it wasn't that like
It wasn't. Look, I don't think it was like super abrupt, but considering the pacing it came from the moment before, for me, I felt that last scene could have had like, countryside shots and other things as opposed to just being in the room. Like you'd built this massive world, and it does make sense like from a literary standpoint to bring it back to the room in the book. That does make sense.
Yeah.
But I think like after everything that's happened, you've seen all these beautiful places in the earth and the choice that has been made, you would think you'd want to ground that choice to me, like grounded in the world.
I think it works better that way.
Yeah?
I think for the film, the ending works very well and it is exactly what it needs to be. But in a more traditional film, it would have been, the family all get into the car, they all have a single shot to themselves, and then, it'd be like a scene of passing countryside where the boy is like looking out the window and he slowly starts to smile, and then a sweet Japanese song plays over the top. That is more of
Sounds boring.
It is.
It's the country road ending,
And
basically.
that is
but
like a
that's
very
kind of what it
traditional Hollywood
generally
film
is,
ending.
yeah.
And that's kind of what... I mean, this is probably because we haven't seen the last anime film we saw in cinemas was Digimon, and the ending for that was very Digimon, Before that, it was Suzume, and Suzume's ending was very much in line with that, where it was, it did do for the outro credits. It had lots of. I could be remembering this wrong, but from memory, the outro credits had lots of landscape shots and stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's like everything's happy, we're all good. Da-da-da-da. Like people love that kind of.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like a sigh at the end.
I feel like as well though that this notion that everyone really likes in films and they want to keep this sort of thing as
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
is unnecessary to
Yeah.
films. And this is the current problem that we have with current films and TV shows, as we were talking about before, is that there is too much of stuff that doesn't need to be there, that eats up everyone's production time. It eats up like the film time, your time watching it as well. It doesn't need to be there. So
some of the films nowadays
snap out of it.
that are, you know, highly proclaimed or touted as original and different just don't follow tropes.
Yeah, this is
It's
true.
still a story, it's still a movie, it's still everything. They just don't follow the same formulaic tropes that everyone has come to like expect.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that type of humor where it's the surprise humor. So you're like, oh.
Yeah. Actually, you make a good point because, like, when I do think about it, you look at some of the other Ghibli films and the endings can be quite similar into this style where it really does focus down on a single element and ends. So it is in line with a standard Ghibli film.
Yeah.
But I haven't watched the Ghibli films for quite a while. And I also have mostly been watching US Hollywood media when I haven't been watching anime. So that kind of does make sense. Like, I've been watching like Netflix films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I am...
Netflix definitely follows that formula.
Yeah, I'm very programmed with that formula.
If there's a situation in which there is an issue, at the end of the film, you as an audience and the protagonist are then seen like distancing yourself from that issue. You know, you've gone into that issue, it's been resolved, and then you see yourself distancing yourself from it. So like Spirited Away, she goes into the bridge, like under the bridge thing, all that stuff happens, and then they come out and then they're driving away and the bridge is like in you're physically getting further away, and that's the end. Like it's over.
Yeah.
I just
Kind of
realized
thing.
that I have the exact opposite problem. That, like, when I watch Hollywood movies and then they have that extra like part, like, because the most recent thing I've been watching is Loki, and then there's a part where I thought it was going to end, but it didn't end there, and there was more, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. As they distance themselves away from it, where it's, I think it, like,
It
in
would
my
have
head, I
ended
was
good
like,
there.
Well,
it
see-
would have ended good at, like, right at that end of that climax, and they could have just ended it there, and it would have been great, and it would have been such a, like, artistic choice, and that's where I would have expected it to end, whereas everybody else would expect it to end later.
Yeah, because something like Loki is for the most audience members that they can cram into that demographic.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Look, I mean, these things work because they work, and this really isn't right for the news section. I just realised that's what we're still in. We've gone back to it again.
There's too much to talk about.
Let's talk about not everything not being lucky and perfect with Undead Unluck. It's getting a dub. And it's premiered earlier this week. It is on Hulu as well, which is annoying. Yes, that was my toe. Worldwide release for Undead Unluck begins on Wednesday on Disney Plus, Hotstar, and Star Plus. Why? Why are there 3 different names for the same program?
So Hotstar is Southeast Asia.
But it's just Star.
Your Star is us.
Yeah, but
Star
like,
is us.
but they've got Star, right? Why call it Hot Star? Why not call it just
Hotstar is Southeast Asia.
Yeah, but why not just call it Disney Plus Star?
No, because everybody knows
technically
Southeast
different
Asians are hotter than us.
Fair. Okay. Well, look, the show looks like it's going to be pretty well done, the adaptation from what I can read here. But it does mean that we will finally be able to watch it outside. So, is it already on Disney Plus?
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus.
Oh.
Sweet. Is it only
I
a few
think
episodes?
It's just the first episode
Okay,
because
so-
it's going with the dub. So I
Okay.
think because of the dub release, they can now release it.
Okay, so good news. You can now watch Undead Unluck legally.
Because I think last time I checked it and it didn't have it, so now it has it.
All right. And from here, I think it's fair to say our last point, which is important, is Jujutsu Kaisen's Akutami Gege says this will probably, definitely, most likely be the last Jump Festa where the manga is still serialized.
Well, so last time he said that it was either going to end this year or next year, and now he's solidified that it will end in 2024.
Wow.
And you
Okay.
can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel we're at the
They
end.
are running towards that ending.
Oh, no.
So the manga has actually added 10 million more copies to circulation since season 2 started 6 months
Wow.
ago. So
Good on 'em.
Yeah, it's going
That's
hard.
awesome.
This part of the manga, which will be, I think they'll split it into 2 seasons basically. Maybe, because it's 24 episodes, they usually do.
Yeah.
But they might still split it into 2 and have the final season
Like
as
12.
like 12 episodes or
Yeah.
something. But like this, like we thought Shibuya arc was like the arc.
Oh no.
But this
this
is something else. Like, and it's still kind of formulaic in the way that they've done their kind of like seasons. I can see how it's gonna go, where it's kind of like slow in the beginning and then everything just happens. And it's not even that it's that slow, it just feels slow comparatively.
Yeah. So the current arc, which is Shibuya arc, the next arc that follows on, is that kind of the final arc?
Yeah, it's the culling arc.
Oh, okay. And is that the final arc of the series?
I think it potentially is, because it definitely feels like it, but there's so much that happens that it could be split off at a certain point. There is a pun in there for people that read the manga.
Oh, that's spiky.
That is about where I would say they could potentially end it on a cliffhanger and then do like a 10 or 12 episode season after to be their final season.
Yeah, that
the
makes
word
sense.
cull is so insidious.
It is, isn't it?
It carries
It's like the death culling
to
games
me,
is what it's called.
it carries so much more weight than kill or
Yeah.
death. It's cull.
Well, what do you think Geto is trying to do here?
Yeah,
So
this
good.
is true. He wants
So
a world with just sorcerers.
Yes.
And just
And then Kenjaku,
Spirits.
who we know is inside of Geto, he obviously does not want good things either. So
yeah. It's not going to be good. Oh, and on a side note, January looks like another blockbuster anime season, so plenty to get excited for in 2024.
Solo
Slime's
leveling.
coming back next year. I'm so excited.
Did you see the trailer? The trailer came out.
No.
The trailer came out,
like I
last
saw that
night.
it came out, but I was like
Yeah.
falling asleep at the time that I saw it, and I was like, babe, look.
There is literally so many shows coming out the next year. There's so much anime news this fortnight. It's like, wow, I've only covered
It's
like
Jump Fiesta.
yeah, I've only covered like a week of it. I'm like, we don't have time for all
We're so
that.
busy next year.
But I think that's where we will leave the anime news. So we'll be right back in a sec.
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
And with that big explosion, that's where we're going to leave things for this episode. So thank you so much for listening. And this is our final show for the year. So I hope no matter what you celebrate or believe, you have an enjoyable end to the year filled with anime, manga, and the power of friendship.
And food.
And food. And food.
Food.
Friends are food. Wait, no. So thanks for being with us this year. It's certainly been a bit of a wild one this year for us. And we greatly appreciated all your support. So, I mean, what on earth? We got listed in a top 5 list. Like, what?
Yeah, it's been a busy year.
Yes, it has. So next time, January means a new anime season. Oh no. So we'll be getting ourselves ready for a deluge of amazing shows to kick off the new year, followed by our 2023 Anime Award episode. We're still figuring that out exactly how it's going to work, but it's going to be a live streamed episode. We're going to get all fancy.
And if you're lucky, I'll be there.
We've moved it to January as well, so we can give the anime series enough time to finish up properly, because normally it'd be like this episode, and that's like, we've still got episodes left of stuff. Like,
You
it's
haven't reached the end of Jujutsu Kaisen
exactly.
I know, we can't rate without.
Like, how can we rate it the best sequel of the year if we haven't finished it? Like, but because of that, same rules do apply. So series that are transitioning over the Christmas break, such as Heron, they don't qualify until next year, unfortunately, because the show's not finished, and that's fair. Like, we've had to do this before. We hate it because we love it, but we can still give it an honourable mention. So there will be a slimmed down category compared to our old awards, but the Cabbage of Shame and the Golden Kawaii-Fu are returning. So,
Excellent.
yes, we love the Cabbage of Shame.
I don't think I have a Cabbage of Shame anime in mind.
Oh, I do.
Yeah,
really?
I'm sure you'll find one.
Oh, there's a few. We've been quite good this year. We've avoided a lot of the bad.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it
Yeah.
because I'm just a cynic.
You are.
I'm just like, bring it on.
What can I find that I don't like? Oh, well.
Bring Bring me that fire. Let's go.
So we've got a month and a half to go through the last year of anime list. We don't have to watch everything, but we've got a month and a half to go through and kind of shortlist a few things we want to talk about, and we'll come back to you on it. On that note, our Patreon members will get to join in a little bit as well, so a big thanks to them as always. If you would like to support the channel and get access to extra content such as the pre-show, outtakes, and video extras, or Emma,
it's just $1 a day.
yeah. Let's just say that Emma made a very hilarious comment in the last episode that I had to cut out completely. It was the one you asked me not to make sure was online last night.
Oh,
it's on Patreon.
And then you put it up anyway.
Yeah. Well, you said make sure it's not in the main episode.
Oh, because you had already posted it. Patreon.
Yeah. So yeah, for really silly statements by Emma, join the Patreon. It's good. We also share major show updates up there as well. If you are on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. That is where the live streams will be next year as well. And if you haven't already, join the Kawaii-Fi community on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Discord, Twitter, at least for now. Twitter X Twitter. It's your new ex-girlfriend, X Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. On that terrible, bad joke for me, we're ending the year.
We're going to cut that.
Yeah.
Hey, future Kyle, cut that.
So, you've been listening to Kawaii-Fi Radio. Thank you so much for joining us this year. Stay safe, and until next time, watch some anime! I'm not cutting it.